Hitler comes into power January 30th, 1933. Hitler became Chancellorship of Germany on January 30th, 1933 when Hindenburg had offered the role to him. Germany, under the propaganda that the Nazis would help them out of the Depression, allowed them to gain much of the vote. Once Hitler was in power, he established a dictatorship and had full power. He immediately put his power to use, as in 3 months, all non-Nazi organizations failed to exist anymore.
Nuremberg Law, September 15, 1935. Hitler's assault on Jews began on April 1st with the urge of a boycott of Jewish businesses. On September 15, 1945, Nuremberg laws were put in place after the approval of the Nazi Party in 1935 to encourage Jewish segregation. The Nuremberg laws were passed to prevent Jews from doing things such as having certain jobs, being a citizen, or being able to vote. They persecuted Jews not for their religious beliefs, but instead their racial identity.
The Munich Pact, September 1938. The Munich Pact was what initially started the end of peace in Europe. European countries offered to resist German expansion to avoid a war in the policy of appeasement, which failed. The pact steered away from war for a while. However, Czechoslovakia, a fairly new country, would be demolished because of this act. Additionally, this aided Hitler in pushing his expansion even more and damaging many countries to come.
Kristallnacht, November 9 to 10, 1938. Kristallnacht occurred over the span of 2 days and nights. German Nazis had commanded all police units to burn synagogues and ransack any property belonging to Jews. More than 1,000 synagogues were burned, close to 7,500 Jewish businesses were robbed, they killed around 91 Jews, and arrested 30,000 more. Because of these acts of violence and the window shattering to the property, it was named the Night of Broken Glass.
World War II begins, September 1st, 1939. Japan, Italy, and Germany followed a policy of aggressive territorial expansion during the 1930s. They invaded weak lands that could easily be conquered in order to gain more power. In their mind, this was only right and brought them satisfaction, though the world saw it as a disaster, a road paved to war, and as a horrible thing to do. Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941. After the Japanese soldiers had bombed Pearl Harbor by surprise, the United States had declared war against the Axis powers. The United States had recovered quickly after the attack. In ways, the attack had succeeded, but in others, it failed. The bombing had left the U.S. wounded, and the Japanese thought that this wouldn't allow the U.S. to undertake offensive operations for a while. But the main objective of their attack was to take down the aircraft carriers Lexington and Enterprise and the Saratoga, and to also destroy the oil storage facilities, both of which the Japanese failed to do.
Wannsee Conference, January 20th, 1942. 15 high-ranking Nazi generals and German government officials gathered at Wannsee to coordinate the implementation of the final solution. The plan for such large-scale murder introduced emotional, physical, and logistical difficulties. The goal of the Wannsee Conference was to organize the best and most efficient ways to collect Jews, transport them to camps, and kill them. The conference lasted only about 90 minutes. Nazi leaders had decided that Jews throughout German-occupied territory would be evacuated by trains to concentration camps. These camps would become centers for slave labor and extermination.
Concentration camps. Death camps, usually composed of a network of several concentration camps used by the Nazis to murder over 1.5 million Jews. Auschwitz, Belzec, and Chelmino were among the several major concentration camps that the Nazis used to kill over 8 million Jews. The separate individual camps were each utilized for distinctive tasks such as slave labor, killing, and medical experimentation. After the camps used the Jews, they sent them to a different camp in order for them to be killed through the use of poison gas chambers. Each camp was intertwined, which allowed the Nazis to get the most out of a person before killing them.
After the attack of Pearl Harbor, Japan attacked the Philippines. Although American and Filipino troops defended, there were too many Germans, and they were forced to back up to Bataan Peninsula, where they were able to hold out for another 3 months. However, more than 75,000 were forced to surrender from malnutrition and disease and were taken prisoners. They were forced to march to Camp O'Donnell, a prison camp quite a bit away from where they were, being horribly mistreated along the way.
Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, early 1943. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was an act of rebellion against the Nazis in 1943. They managed to keep the Germans away as the Jews hid in bunkers, and a few independent groups used any sort of weapons they could get their hands on to stop the Germans. Though they couldn't keep them off for long, in the 28 days to deport the Jews, they lost several hundred German soldiers. Death Marches, 1945. Death marches were not uncommon closer to the end of the Holocaust. As the evacuation of camps happened around 1945, the Americans moved closer, making the roundups hasty and disorderly. A good deal of the prisoners managed to escape during this time, but the ones who didn't were forced to evacuate on the camps together on foot, and it is estimated that several hundreds of people died.
World War II ends, September 2nd, 1945. The Allied forces cut Germany in half, forcing them to surrender after a huge attack. After Germany surrendered, Japan was left to fend for itself, but was soon overtaken by the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the Allied forces and forced to give up as well.
Genocide Convention, 1948. The UN Genocide Convention took place after several protests erupted demanding that the world leaders do something about the Nazis. During the Genocide Convention, world leaders labeled genocide illegal under the international law and prosecuted cases of genocide and war crimes during World War II. Nuremberg Trials 1945 to 1949. The world community's primary reaction to all of the Nazis' horrific methods of murdering Jews based on their beliefs was the creation of the Nuremberg Trials. Through the Nuremberg Trials, Nazi generals were tried and persecuted for their crimes against humanity.
The severe punishments given during the Nuremberg trials were supported with the idea that the punishments, such as death, were justifiable due to the Nazis' violent and gruesome beliefs and actions.
The Holocaust Remembrance Day is on January 27th and commemorates the estimated 8 million Jews that died in the Holocaust. This day is devoted to remembering and educating people of what this horrific event was. Paintings, books, and documentaries are among several of the works that educate this generation about this event in hopes of preventing anything related to it in the future. Nearly 10,000 survivors walked to one of the Nazis' concentration camps in order to honor all those that died there.